Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I'm going to talk to you about The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. This is the sequel to The Poppy War, and both are part of a Chinese history-inspired adult high fantasy series. And can I just say that it's kind of crazy how much thicker with a double C The Dragon Republic is than The Poppy War. Like, it's only about 100 pages more, yet it's so much thicker. And also, I don't know if you can tell, but my copy of The Dragon Republic is like 3 millimeters taller than my copy of The Poppy War, and it's really upsetting to me. But yeah. So this is going to be a spoiler-free review. I will have also a spoiler discussion up on my channel, probably in 1 or 2 weeks, depending on when I'll get around to filming and editing that video. But in this video, you don't have to worry, I won't have any spoilers for The Dragon Republic, although I'm not sure if I can promise the same for The Poppy War. I won't talk about any specifics from this book, but I also can't promise that I won't let anything slip. But I don't think that anyone who hasn't read The Poppy War would watch a review for The Dragon Republic anyway. Because of that, I also won't tell you what the series as a whole is about. However, in The Dragon Republic, we're just continuing on with Rin and the Psyche as they go after Empress Daji to get revenge. And we also see Rin kind of finding a new master and finding something new to fight for. Now, some of you might know that I actually only gave The Poppy War 1 star. It's actually only one of 3 books that I ever just gave 1 star, the other being Empire of Ashes by Sarah J. Maas and The Catcher in the Rye by... I don't even know the author anymore. I know it's a classic, but I forgot the author. Whatever. The reason why I only gave it 1 star is because this book made me very angry. I in fact made 2 videos on this book. One was a review and rant right after I had finished reading it, in which I got very emotional and very angry, which is why I said some things in ways that could have been better said and that I don't agree with that much anymore, even though I still mostly agree with the contents of what I said, which is why last week I uploaded a kind of follow-up to that first review in which I kind of went more calmer and more into depth on my thoughts, why this book made me so angry, also having had just 1 year to reflect on the book and on my feelings and so on. And I will leave both of those videos linked down below. And so yeah, if you have read The Poppy War and are interested in why I didn't like it, go and check that out. Now you might be thinking, Sarah, if you hated this book, why did you even read the second book? And that is because even though I really didn't like this, I was still interested in seeing how the author would continue the story, especially since I really hated the ending. And so this in no way was a hate read. I do not hate read books. Whenever I pick a book up, I do hope that I will thoroughly enjoy it. And I had hopes for this one because I heard a lot of good things about this one and how R.F. Kuang continues on with the story in a very morally grey way, which I thought I might enjoy. However, I did not, and still ended up giving this book only 2 stars, which was still more than the first book though. And even though I did not personally enjoy this book, it in no way made me angry like the first book did. And so I think I can make a much more objective review of this book, not in a way where I can tell you this is a good book or this is a bad book, but just in a way where I can tell you this is what R.F. Kuang did, and this is how she dealt with certain things. I didn't enjoy most of that stuff, but you might enjoy it. So now let's get into my thoughts. And with that said, the very first thing I gotta mention is that R.F. Kuang definitely way improved her writing. And the thing where I personally noticed that most is the pacing. The pacing of The Poppy War was kind of all over the place, where the first 2/3 or so of the book were kind of calm, didn't have a lot of action, and were kind of slow as well. And the last third of the book had a lot of action, had a lot of stuff happening, was very fast, and it just kind of made for an unbalanced reading experience. The pacing during The Dragon Republic is overall a lot more measured. I would say the pacing overall is faster than the first 2/3 of The Poppy War. However, it still in all of the book is slower than the last third of The Poppy War, if you kind of get what I mean. Now moving on to a main character, Rin. First of all, I gotta say that I absolutely love the way R.F. Kuang handled Rin's trauma. She didn't shy away from getting into the very gritty stuff. I have noticed a lot of times in high fantasy, especially if you have a character that has dealt with a lot of trauma. I mean, the one very obvious example that comes to my mind is Aelin in Empire of Ashes. But a lot of times authors will maybe go a little bit into the trauma of the character and then suddenly it's gone. Not so the case with Rin in the Poppy War. The majority of the book, if not all of the book, she very much works through her trauma, not just from the things she did at the ending of the Poppy War, but just from everything that happened to her so far. And she works through her anger and so on. And I really, really appreciated that. Because just being characters in a fantasy novel doesn't mean the characters don't have to deal with mental health. If anything, that's the thing that will be the same for characters in a fantasy novel and for us in real life. So that, absolutely loved it. However, that doesn't mean that I liked Rin any better. I actually already think I don't like her that much during the Poppy War. I found her kind of annoying. And it just got worse. She is probably the most annoying main character I have ever read about, or like one of the top 3. And sometimes when you have the motivations of the character, you can excuse it if they're annoying. However, with Rin, that just didn't happen. I don't like her at all, like at all. And it's really hard for me to read through a whole book with a main character that I find so highly annoying. I can read a book with a main character that I dislike, however a book with a main character that I think is annoying is on a whole other level. This book, which will surprise no one, is also very dark. I wouldn't say it gets as dark as the Poppy War did, however, like the average darkness of the book, if you can say it like that, is darker than the Poppy War. Because in the Poppy War I felt there were more light scenes, and in this book there's basically no light scenes at all. And I do like my dark books, but I didn't like it in this book. And the reason behind that is that the dark themes in this book, mostly as with most grimdark fantasy, come kind of from a place where there's not really any characters that you could see as good. However, where a lot of grimdark fantasy goes into this part where you have just morally grey characters only, and they're like different shades of grey, and some get very, very dark grey, and some are like a little bit more lighter grey. In this book, I felt like everyone was just morally black. And it's just, I think it's the point of the book. I think that's what R.F. Kuang kind of wanted to show, that there's like no good guys. There's not even a better side or a worse side, but like everyone is just horrible. However, I personally didn't like it. I found it an interesting concept, but it's just really, really boring for me to read about. Because I kind of, even in morally grey books, I just want someone I can root for, you know, and that I just want to win, especially if it's a war story or something, or someone that I don't want to die. And I just wanted everyone in this book to die. Just everyone. Kill them all off. They're all horrible, and that just got really, really boring because I didn't really want to follow any of the characters. And I think actually this book could have been better if there were multiple POVs. It's written in third-person perspective, but we still only follow Rin throughout the whole story. And I would have loved, for example, some chapters from the POV of Empress Daji, because I find her an incredibly, incredibly interesting character. She's pretty much the only character in the book that I enjoyed and that I wanted to know more about. However, we just don't get anything from her, and that I just really didn't like. Also, I think that's kind of a theme that I had throughout the book, that I loved the concepts in the book. I loved what R.F. Kuang, I think, tried to do, but I was just never a fan of the execution. And I don't know if that is because R.F. Kuang just doesn't have the abilities to properly execute her concepts yet, or if it's just that I personally didn't like the way she executed them. It could be both, to be honest, because as I said already, she has already gotten a lot better from the Poppy War to the Dragon Republic, so maybe in the Burning God she got even better, and then I'll finally like the book. But I just didn't like this morally blackness, because I just found it boring. I don't even mean that I need any characters that are good that I want to follow, because I have plenty of characters that are morally dark gray that I still find really compelling and that I kind of root for in the deepest, darkest corner of my heart. And I just found all the characters in this book really one-dimensional aside from Rin, and we've already talked about what I think about Rin. And then there were like 2 or 3 other characters that I also enjoyed reading about. I did enjoy Kitai, and I also enjoyed Venka, I think her name is. So yeah, I did enjoy some characters, but we don't get that much from most of those characters. For example, Kitai is also a character that I really would have loved if we had had some POV chapters from him, because I think he went through a lot of character development in this book, and he changed a lot from book 1, even from the ending of book 1, and I would have loved to see that like first row and not just kind of around the corner through Rin. I just think in general this book could have been 4 times, 5 times better if it had had multiple person POV. And then the other thing with the morally grey characters is that in this book we get like the stand-ins for the Europeans for the first time. I think the Hesperians, they're called, and they're very historically accurate. And that's something else that I gotta say, just quick tangent. The historical aspects and the war aspects are really well done in this book. And I did enjoy especially some of the more strategic discussions between characters. However, back to the Hesperians. Very historically accurate, and I also love that they had like different types of Europeans, Hesperians, colonizers obviously, with different historical accurate perspectives from the Europeans. However, they were also just boring because they were so evil and so obviously like mean, which the Europeans during colonization, of course, like 90% of the time were. And there were like maybe 1 or 2 every few thousand that just honestly cared about the people or whatever, but even those most of the time still felt like they were superior to the other ethnicities and so on. But I just don't think that history always makes an interesting story. And that's where my main problem with a lot of this book comes from. That like, again, going back to this like just black evil, not any motivation of the Hesperians aside from just we're better than you, we're superior and so on. And it just really got on my nerves. For example, character-wise, and I know that that's maybe not a good idea because a lot of people complain, which I completely understand, that this is called the Asian Game of Thrones, which it completely is. But for example, in A Song of Ice and Fire, I way prefer Cersei as a villain, as an evil character, because she has a lot of interesting motivations. She isn't just evil for the sake of being evil compared to Joffrey. Joffrey you can love to hate, but I find him as a character kind of boring, and I'm not really all that interested in him. And that was what my problem was with this book. It's very interesting in this concept that you don't really have anyone you want to root for. However, in my opinion, the end result is just a pretty boring story. And if you then have a main character that I don't personally want to follow, then it's just, you have a book that I end up giving 2 stars, and that's what I gotta say. And that's also why I'm saying it's like I'm trying to be objective in saying this is what the book did. This book just follows morally black characters. You don't really have any good characters in this book. You don't really have anyone that you're rooting for. And I think that's how it's supposed to be. I think R.F. Kuang did it on purpose. However, I don't enjoy that. If you enjoyed it, then all the power to you, and I really hope you end up loving this book. But I sadly did not. Will I pick up the 3rd book? Probably. I just want all the beautiful hardcovers. I'm just such a whore for beautiful books. I hate it. I hate being a book collector. So I'm probably going to buy The Burning God simply because then I have the full set of the hardcovers. But yeah, that's all I had to say about this book. I hope I wasn't too all over the place while talking about this book, and I will talk again more about my more in-depth thoughts in my spoilery discussion. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. Tell me in the comments down below if you have read the Dragon Republic, what your thoughts are on it, and if you haven't read the Dragon Republic and you have some more questions, just ask them in the comments down below and I will try to help you and answer them. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!